Hello there, and welcome to another edition of the HuskerOnline Show. Sean Callahan, Steve Sipple, Robin Washett. Later, we'll be joined by Abby Barmore in the mailbag. But we've got a full show here in February. As I want to start with this piece on the opening headlines. As we are in the middle of our Red Sea Scrolls chat that we do on Tuesdays, this bit of news came to my email box. Running backs coach EJ Barthel officially gets a new contract, meaning this is the final piece of the coaching staff that we really didn't know. And I say that because, look, a day before that, Barthel's name was reported to be a candidate at Texas by both the Houston Chronicle and our own Pete Nakos. And then earlier this cycle, Penn State's James Franklin, according to Blue and White Illustrated and Sean Fitz, did talk to Barthel for the running backs job. But Barthel will enter in a new contract. It backdates to now February 1st. He'll make $450,000. He was previously making just under $295 before, but that $450 right in line with what Rob Dvorak's new contract is. So, you know, I say there was question because, look, we know there were at least two other teams that talked to Barthel, but now those questions are behind us, and this staff looks to be set, guys.
Yeah, we don't know how serious those talks were, but yeah, that's significant. Like Barthel is representative to me as this apparatus is now in place. These guys are all highly paid. They're paid like a big time program should pay the coaches. They have the facilities. The head coach is taken care of. Everything's in place now. Now Nebraska, it's time. It's getting to the point now where you got to start seeing it on the field. Mm-hmm. And I mean significantly. There's nothing. Do you guys ever think about it? There's nothing really holding back Nebraska anymore. There's really nothing. So let's see it. You know, there's no real excuses anymore. Mm-hmm. The leadership's aligned. You can't say, SIP, they're not their facilities wise. They're not keeping up with the brethren in the Big Ten. They're not paying the coaches like they should. The head coach isn't, he's underpaid. No, nothing. There's nothing. It's all right there. Now it's probably time to start winning.
Mm-hmm. So going back to Barthel, Sean, you kind of laid it out about how this all ended, but what do you think led to the points where, regardless of the extent of those talks, that it led to him in some capacity talking to other teams or other teams reaching out to him? And then why was he the last coach to get that extension?
Well, and maybe Matt Rule, he's very good about this with his assistants. Maybe they had a talking like Matt's like, hey, yeah, see what's out there. Go for it. I back my coaches, and if you want to look at opportunities, do it. But we want you back. We have a spot for you. And clearly they did. They gave him a new contract. But, in my mind, I'm thinking to myself, if he didn't come back, they could have easily promoted Jamar Mosey to the running backs coach.
Absolutely.
He's already a senior assistant offensive coach making $200,000. And he's probably one of their more valuable recruiting guys. So that would have made sense. If he left, they could have promoted him. But nonetheless, those opportunities did not work out, and the news got out that immediately Nebraska sent out the contract at around 10:15 on Tuesday morning.
Maybe. I mean, he might have been on their hot boards, Penn State and Texas. Maybe he just chose to come back to Nebraska. But if you're EJ Barthel and those schools, Texas and Penn State, show interest, you'd be crazy not to look at it. You'd be crazy not to throw your hat in that ring. Why wouldn't you? Those are two top 5 teams, no matter what. Penn State will get a lot of number 1 votes. Hell, Texas will. I mean, there's no way those teams are outside the top 5 to start the season. Why wouldn't you look at them? I mean, if you're EJ Barthel, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, Penn State's got the best running back tandem in the nation.
That'd be about the easiest. I mean, not say the easiest, but that'd be one of the better running back jobs to walk into for whoever.
Well, both of those. I mean, look at the running backs. Both of those programs have produced over the years. I mean, that's elite level talent. And I wonder too, like when you look at the staff makeup, there had been some criticism about EJ Barthel, and I don't think it had anything to do with developments, because you look at Emmett Johnson, Ramir Johnson, even Dante Dowdell over the course of the season, they've all gotten better. And so I think the players that are in the program thrive under EJ Barthel. But I think the knock of people that say, maybe he's not doing enough, it's probably on the recruiting front, because you're not getting that 5-star bell cow type running back that Nebraska's, had the luxury of for, decades before, the last 15. So I just wonder if like that part of it, maybe the appeal, not only going to a program with a tradition of a Texas and a Penn State running back wise, just the ability to recruit and the ease. Maybe it's easier to recruit running backs.
And look, they got running backs here on campus to visit, like Nate Frazier, who was almost a starter as a freshman at Georgia, was in this very office where Robin sits. And EJ was big in getting him here to visit. So it's not like they haven't gotten good running backs to visit here.
No, and I'm going to play the role of his agent right now. How are you judging Jamarian Parker right now? He hasn't played a game. How even Quentin Ives? You guys
got a lot of young backs that haven't done.
Well, people poo-poo Connor Booth, but he's got one of the best seasons in the history. And Arizona State offered Connor Booth, and they thought he could be a Cam Scattaboo for him. Like that's how they looked at him as a recruit. And I know at least one service bumped Booth up to a 4-star.
See, I mean, I would feel really guilty if I got on this microphone and said, I think they should move on from Barthel. Then Ives came in next year and ran for 750 yards on 5 yards a carry. Oh, that was Barthel's guy. No, I mean, there are some coaches they've moved on from where it made sense. It did. Even after 2 years, which is pretty quick, you would say, no, that made sense. Barthel wouldn't have made sense to me. It really wouldn't have. I didn't understand.
I think just the track record of development. I mean, Emmett Johnson's the poster boy for what EJ Barthel can do with guys that are in the program. Emmett Johnson was not a high-profile recruit. Now he's your lead back, and you're honestly feeling okay with the way that he progressed over the course of last season with that picture.
I know this is a long discussion, but the two things you look at are ball security. I mean, if you're judging running backs right off, you're looking at ball security and pass protection, and then how hard they run. I think ball security was pretty good last year, right?
Dowdell fumbled.
Dowdell had
the bowl game. The one big hit led to the fumble.
Got hit from three sides.
In extremely wet field conditions.
Right. So it wasn't a huge problem. Dowdell had some issues. Pass protection, Emmett Johnson, wouldn't you say he's excellent in pass protection?
Gotten a lot better.
That's why I played.
Yeah. So, and then what I always say about these backs under Barthel is they run extremely hard. I don't know that that's of the utmost importance to some people because they'll say, well, it should happen. I don't know. I've watched Nebraska backs that don't run hard sometimes. Under Frost, they had a couple guys
dancers
duck out of bounds.
They need more explosion out of that position.
100.
I mean, the 8 to 10 yard gains need to be 20 to 30 yard runs. Like
100.
Like that's that next level separation. That's where this group has to improve.
Well, I think he gets, for whatever reason, people like, oh, he didn't bring guy. He got Dowdell here, and they got Dowdell a year ago. When you talk about NIL, probably more of a value, where Kentucky just came in and paid, ridiculous above market money,
desperation money
to buy Dowdell.
That's the unfortunate part of NIL right now is the market gets skewed by desperate teams.
Because think about what Dowdell, like after what he did, like he was poised to have a really good year here.
I thought
that 1-2 punch of him and Emmett Johnson was going to look really nice.
I think so. I thought so. Yeah.
So we'll see how it goes in Kentucky. All right. When we come back, I want to talk more about the Big Ten SEC meetings that are happening in New Orleans this week, a possible scheduling agreement as well down the road. You're listening here to the HuskerOnline Show. We're back here on the HuskerOnline Show. Sean Callahan, Steve Sipple, Robin Washett. HuskerOnline Show brought to you by Omaha Steaks. Still doing the President's Day sale right now. Everything right now is over 50% off right now at Omaha Steaks. You can find lots of great boxes, but now we're going to give you now $30 off per box with the promo code HuskerOnline. Check it out. They have so many great deals and combinations. Again, that's $30 off with this latest special we have now to get and you already get 50% off, and that's burgers, that's steaks, that's chicken, that's side items, that's everything. You can package it the way you want, whether that's filet mignons, whether it's whatever your favorite kind of steaks are, they've got it 50% off site wide plus another $30 off, but you have to use that promo code HuskerOnline to get the $30 off. Thanks to Omaha Steaks for sponsoring us here on the HuskerOnline Show. Okay, let's get into the Big Ten SEC meetings in New Orleans. As all the athletic directors are down there this week, including Nebraska's Troy Dannon, commissioners Greg Sankey and Tony Petiti from the two respected conferences are, running these things. And it's clear that this is an unofficial alliance that these two leagues know that if they work together, they will control everything.
Wonderful.
And here's the thing. They want guaranteed playoff spots.
4.
Because then if they get 4 per league, that will allow them to schedule at their heart's desire. And what does that allow you to do? Get more games for television during the regular season that bring in bigger ratings and more money. And
then you can pay the players more, and you can further distance yourself from the pack. There's a couple of things that come to mind for me. And I know Sean's reaction is pretty predictable, but please just listen. Don't you have any kind of problem with a system where you artificially award bids before a season's played? Doesn't that strike you as, I know what you're going to say, Sean. Well, they're going to get them anyway. Maybe. It's just odd to me that we set this system before a season. We're saying they're going to get 4 bids before we even know they deserve
more an NFL model. And this is almost more like Major League Baseball, where the Yankees and the Dodgers kind of distance themselves because they have more money than everybody.
Okay, do you see what I'm saying about the artificial nature of just saying we're going to give you 4 Cs before you earn them?
I do think, though, that's the reality of what college football has become, where the teams with the most money are the best teams. And therefore, their record might not look as good because they're playing the best competition. And so they might be a more qualified playoff team, but their record might not reflect it. And so I think this is the effort where it's obvious to everyone that the SEC and Big Ten are playing at a different level than everyone else, maybe outside of Notre Dame. And therefore they should be rewarded for, like Sean said, playing a more difficult schedule. And then also from the fan perspective, by scheduling these Big Ten SEC like partnership games, it's better for the fans. You're getting better games. It makes college football more exciting during the regular season when the best teams are playing each other. And so by guaranteeing those playoff spots, you're allowing the opportunity to create a more exciting regular season. And unfortunately, it's going to come at the sacrifice of the have-nots of the college football world.
Wait, hold on.
It's the reality. So.
I get what you're saying, but it's it's more exciting for 2 conferences. It's not exciting for the rest of the country.
But look, what's the percentage of the college football fandom from SEC fans and Big Ten fans compared to Mountain West?
Okay.
Or
so
ACC?
A year at this time, what the Big Ten and the SEC were basically threatening to do is break off.
Pretty much. I think this is just a precluder to.
So
what
if they don't
really
get the 4 bids each, they could, and then the whole thing's done.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, are you comfortable with that?
I've lost comfort
it's not
with
my
everything.
choice to be comfortable, but it's the reality of what they have.
You can
Stop
have
being
an
comfortable with
opinion
college
on
football
it.
a long
You can
time
have
ago.
Are you afraid to have an opinion on it?
Are
you afraid to speak?
My opinion is that they control the cards, and if they do what they want to do, they can do what they want to do. And
I don't have to say I like it.
That's why they would get the 4 bids.
You don't have to like it. I'm just saying that's just what's going to happen.
But
this is what our world is now with college football.
But Clemson, Florida State, Notre Dame, Miami, some of those teams that aren't in this,
right?
They play in stadiums that would comp like the SEC and the Big Ten, and those are the teams you really wonder about because they do at least try to spin at the level of these teams.
And they'll get their shot in the playoff. Like the 8 guaranteed bids will not prevent them from making the playoff if they're at that level of play.
I'll tell you, because the ACC and the Big 12 will get 2 bids each, so half as much as the Big 10 and the SEC. If I were the other 8 leagues, I would get another layer of representation and cut away at the Big 10 and the SEC any way I could. I would not allow Sankey and Petiti to take over the world. I would get, I don't know, if attorneys, whatever, experts in TV, and I would not allow it to happen.
They can't draw the ratings, though. They don't have the product to draw the ratings. These 2 leagues, whatever they put on, they had like 66 of the most 70 highest rated games of the year.
Yeah, and let's not act like who's making the decisions. It's the TV networks. Like it's ESPN, it's Fox, it's NBC. Those games, the outlets that are benefiting from these high profile games, they're the ones pushing it, and they have the money behind it.
I'm not okay with them breaking away.
I don't think they will. I think they're each going to get their 4. And I think you're going to see the SEC eventually go to 9. So it's going to be 9 games for the 2 leagues. And then everybody will play 1 SEC non-conference game.
Then you get rid of the conference championship games.
I don't know about that because there's so much money involved. But yeah, there is a theory that the conference championship games could be played on Thanksgiving weekend.
Yeah.
And then you move the season up to start at week 0.
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't mind that. That part doesn't bother
I think we need to start on week 0. Personally, I kind of like an August 24th opener. I don't like to wait until like September 1st.
Mm-hmm. I guess where I come from is I'm not comfortable with a world where we just Kansas State's all of a sudden just out. They're out.
Well, they'd still get a chance for a bid.
Still,
There's
the
2
thing.
bids.
They're not out.
I mean, you want the Big 12 to get 4 bids?
No, they're not out in terms of bids, but the money disparity is becoming so significant that they're effectively out. I mean,
they're not going to be able to buy the transfer portal players
right.
that you need to win.
No, it's not. I'm not talking about just bids. There's a bigger picture element to it. And I know this isn't unpopular. I take unpopular positions all the time. This is an unpopular position. I like college football. I don't want college football to be the Big Ten and the SEC. Mm-hmm. I think it'd be really haughty for me to sit here in Nebraska because Nebraska's a part of it, which is good. That's great. I cover a team that's part of it. What if I didn't? What if you're Iowa State? Really? I mean, I don't like a college football world where Iowa State is relegated to also ran status. They have a chance, I guess. But not on any kind of equal level at all.
I don't think that's an unpopular opinion at all. I think the majority of college football fans probably feel that way. But again, I think more and more, like myself, are just accepting what the game is now. And it's all about money. It's all about TV ratings. It's all about who can buy the most and pay for the most. And the people that can are going to be rewarded for it. That's just the
we
reality
did a
that we have.
Poll on who would you like to see Nebraska play in this SEC series? And naturally, Oklahoma was number 1, Missouri number 2. Those were like the top 2. But a lot of Nebraska fans, A&M got very little to no votes. I would say that Texas, LSU, and Alabama were all equal. So there's a lot of desire. Nebraska fans obviously want to see Nebraska play Oklahoma.
I see that.
They want to see Nebraska play Missouri, and to some extent Texas. But in this type of thing, I don't know if there's a lot of financial TV value to put Nebraska versus Texas, because they're going to want to put Texas against Michigan. They're going to put them against Oregon. They're going to want to put them against Ohio State.
Yeah.
Nebraska is going to be far down the pecking list of.
You could do like Florida. That'd be a fun game.
It would be.
I mean, like that's
a lot of them would be.
Like the potential matchups are limitless. Like, about
it's great.
There's all sorts of teams
Ole Miss would be amazing.
Don't get me wrong. This is a great world if you're in the Big Ten and the SEC.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. If you have a seat at the table, you're doing just fine.
Right.
You're
loaded.
K-State or Iowa State or whatever. Like you're worrying.
Yeah, so there's a lot there. And this will and look, Nebraska plays Tennessee in 26 and 27. That's not going away. Troy Dannon has said that's a part of the plan right now. So I would imagine Tennessee wouldn't be ever a game Nebraska would see on a SEC Big Ten partnership for a long time because they had just recently played. But there's a lot of possibilities. The only real snag though is there's 18 Big Ten teams. There's 16 SEC teams. So you're going to have naturally 2 teams that wouldn't get a game.
Matt Rule talked about it, and he talked about it with Josh Pate of CBS Sports. Rule is in favor of like a 40 to 50 team college football.
Yeah, I think that's inevitable at this point.
Yeah, I do too. That really doesn't bother me.
Because again, these 2 power conferences are playing a different game right now. And so, why is it fair to the teams that cannot compete financially to have to go head to head with them? Let the haves do their own thing and let everybody else just kind of continue doing what they're doing.
Then you have outliers like SMU and Texas Tech who are just
on the border,
oil moneying their way into it. Like they have so much money.
True.
It's true. Like they shouldn't. It's almost like you go to the real fancy party and you see like the redneck guys roll in. You're like, how these guys
that hit the lottery?
I mean, you're like, wait a minute, how do these guys get in with Michigan and in the fancy schmancy schools? And all of a sudden, Texas Tech and SMU's an elite school, but but their money can get them in. So that if that ever gets to that will be interesting to see how those teams do it because they're
what's the cutoff is what you're getting at. Like if I was when rule says 40 to 50, okay, now it's easy to say that.
BYU's in that
But
group probably too.
where's the cutoff? Who's getting left out?
Mm-hmm.
Who's getting left out of that picture?
Like imagine in Iowa, the battle about Iowa State.
Right. Right. Exactly. Who's getting left out? That's the question. Is Utah getting left out? Is who's getting left
Like
out?
Colorado.
Yeah.
That's why the old initial theory of relegation, like the Premier League,
Right.
like the teams that want to invest and win and somehow turn it around, they can
Could
get
never
rewarded
happen,
by
though.
playing their way up.
Relegation's a fascinating term.
I
You know
know.
who brought that up? I don't think he'd mind me saying it. It was after Big Ten Media Days. Frost got off the podium, had a big chaw in, whipped his chaw out. And we were talking about this subject, he and a couple reporters, and he mentioned the relegation.
Yeah.
He said, this is what's going to come down to. So there's going to be 40 to 50 teams, and you maybe can play your way into it, that sort of thing.
I just think when you talk about these state universities, though, you're talking about state lawmakers, elected board of region officials. It's not as simple as let's kick out the bad teams. I mean, you have state political pieces to all of these places, and in some cases, religious pieces like BYU and Notre Dame. And
that's why it's not as easy as saying, well, I think we need a 40 to 50 team. We just got to separate the 40 to 50. Okay, good luck with that. See what that cutoff
think about
looks
Congress
like.
and Senate, all those people that would be tied to those schools representing. It would get down to Washington. Like it would get ugly.
It would, because who are you cutting out of that pie? Who's getting cut?
Because it would have a financial impact on those states.
Yeah.
So it already will. But anyway, let's
that's a great topic.
We had a good segment there. When we
Yeah.
come back, I want to hit on the future of spring practice next. You're listening here to the Husker Online Show. And we're back here on the Husker Online Show. Sean Callahan, Steve Sipple, Robin Washut. This segment of the Husker Online Show brought to you by Mando. And I walked in the studio. I'm like, God, what is that great smell?
You did not.
And I said, oh, Sipple is wearing some Mando. I'll be dang. I just traveled with him, and people on the plane were like, God, what is that smell? I need to know who that guy
There it
is.
is right there.
Yeah.
That smells just
See
like
that
a million
body
bucks.
wash?
It smells like bourbon leather in here.
Oh, for God's sake. The little tube of body wash is what's going on right now, and it's real. Like it is real.
Sipple, though, is a high-level athlete still, so he probably prefers the pure sport brand.
Absolutely. See right there, that's
That's the bourbon leather.
yeah. I prefer the pure sport. There it is.
There it is.
Yeah.
Pro sport.
Pro sport.
Because you are a high-level athlete. When you train, you need the pro
Here's
sport
what I was
deodorant.
going to say about that. If you use the body wash in your shower, it makes the whole room smell good. I mean, it's not just your body. It just smells good in there.
So here's what we're going to do. You've never tried Mando. You're like, God, these guys are full
Is that
of
creepy?
No.
I don't think so.
Hard transition, though.
Yeah, go ahead.
You never tried it. You want to try it because Sipple and Callahan and Robin have been talking about it. We're going to get you the Mando starter pack, and it comes with 4 products. You're going to get a little bit of everything. It's already discounted as is. We're going to take another $5 off that starter pack, and there's free shipping. Use the promo code Husker. That's promo code Husker, and you'll get that Mando starter pack, and that's going to come with stick deodorant, spray deodorant, wipes, 4 items total, and you can kind of mix and match the items that you want. It's already marked down. We're taking $5 more off that $35. We'll mark it down to $30 plus free shipping at Mando, shopmando.com. Thank you to Mando for making Steve Sipple this smell like $1 million.
Yeah, I mean, I think this should be more of a thing. I mean, you don't want to walk around smelling. It's the worst thing ever.
And sometimes Sip might carry the spray with them, and he'll just spray you.
Sprayed in my truck. I mean,
Gotcha.
That's another thing. You don't want to open it somebody's car or truck and smell the gym.
He's like the guy in My Big Fat Greek Wedding with the Windex, but instead of the Windex, it's Mando.
Yeah.
What's he carrying Windex for?
Because he's Greek and he
Fix
feels
anything. You gotta scrape, spray it with some Windex.
Windex is the cure for everything.
A scrape on your body.
Yes.
You spray Windex.
Yeah.
Ooh, interesting.
All right, let's get into next topic of discussion: spring football. And look, we know Nebraska's not going to have a spring game. We know they're going to have regular spring practices. There are still a lot of schools, though, that will have spring games. Penn State, Florida. We've seen a few others announce spring game dates. But then there's others like Central Florida that have come out and said, no, we're not doing one. And that seems to be where it's all heading. But at least for this year, we're going to see some form of spring games out there. And look, we both agree, all three of us agree, that Nebraska will host some sort of event that fans will attend.
Yeah, so Nebraska right now is in a little bit of an awkward period where you have these guys like James Franklin coming out and saying, hey, we're going to have a spring game because I'm taking care of my fans and the businesses of the community. And then you got Nebraska over here has announced we're not having a spring game. So it's just sort of an awkward position, but it's 1 year thing because the whole spring is going to get blown up in 2026. That's where we're headed, right? Where you're not even going to have spring practice. So you're not going to worry about whether you're going to have a spring game or not. I'm fine with not having it. I mean, it makes a lot of sense not to have it. But now this is the tricky part. You have to have something. Now that'll be the question. What do you have? I
think you could do just like an open practice where maybe you do a little bit of 11 on 11, but it's not like a full game.
Not on TV though. That's the one thing Rule has said with the production quality of the Nebraska spring game.
It's free portal scouting. Teams are like, hey, you're a fourth string running back and you had a good spring. Why don't you come on to directional tech and we'll take care of you. Like, and you'll actually play. So like that happened last year when they had their nationally televised spring game. Matt Rule said that his players immediately after that game were getting calls from other schools telling them to look out into transferring down. So yes, TV is a big part of that, but I still think you can have an open practice and not televise it. Like that can be a public thing where you're just doing some really like vanilla 11 on 11 work, or maybe just some good on good incorporated into a normal practice. But then I think you got to do something else, whether it's a concert or some sort of fan events, like they can incorporate like a fan day where they get autographs or whatever. Like make it beyond just, hey, come check out practice. Like this is make it more of a celebration of Nebraska football, which really that's what the spring game was and has been for a long time. But then also get some actual football work.
Or do you do like an NIL practice thing with 1890 where the money given to the practice will go towards NIL?
Sure. They did that last year.
I mean, they
did that for the spring game?
Yeah.
Or in addition to.
But they didn't get, I will say though, for that open, and I was at a wedding that night. You guys were there. I would say it was a decent crowd. It wasn't like.
Yeah. That was their first time doing it. I don't think anybody really knew what to expect. And again, like I think you would have to pair an open practice with something else. Like there has to be another draw.
That's the question. And I would think Sean above me and you. Sean's kind of more like an AD type. Don't you have any ideas, Sean?
A concert.
But then there's like the logistics of it, like setting up a stage and the sound right after a football practice. Like that might take some time.
I mean,
so there'd be a lull. So like, I mean, there's just stuff you got to figure out.
Lee Greenwood saying "I'm proud to be American" right on the field, no stage.
Yeah, if you do like a solo act or something.
I'm not saying. Remember when Lee Greenwood did that?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Couldn't you just under your? I mean, if we're really having this discussion, let's say we're in a boardroom in Nebraska. Under your scenario, if you just have a quick scrimmage, 11 on 11, whatever, just have half of the field, use half the field and set the stage on the other half. Problem solved.
Could you build the stage up in the end zone?
Yeah, perhaps.
Like, and to say that end zone won't have seats for the.
Yeah. You absolutely could do that.
And just build up a stage in the end zone.
How do you incorporate the other sports? How about that? How do you do it? I don't know how you do it. There's probably a way, though. I mean, Troy Dan and the AD for Nebraska has mentioned incorporating other sports. Now, how do you do that? I don't know.
I still like one idea I had when the stadium's not available, because there's going to be at least a year where there's not going to be anything to do. I thought a good idea would have been Husker Day in Omaha, and you play a baseball game at maybe not TD Ameritrade, but you convert TD Ameritrade. It's been used as a football field before. Make that a football field. Have a Husker event on the field there. Have a volleyball match at the arena, and then also have a baseball game played at nearby at Creighton or UNO, or figure out something. If you wanted to include baseball or softball, you easily could.
Now that's a novel idea, and novel is good.
Maybe it doesn't have to just be all on one day. Maybe it's like a Nebraska weekend where the concert's on Sunday and the spring games or spring practice is on Saturday.
The businesses would go.
The world is our oyster here.
But how does Nebraska make money on this? Because the rental fees, I'll say this: Mecca is not just going to give you anything for free. I mean, like you have to pay.
Okay, so we're back to Omaha. That Yeah, that can be worked out.
But when the stadium's not available, but again, we may not even be talking about this because we're going to be switching to this OTA model
quickly.
Yeah, they might not be practicing in spring.
And the OTA model in the month of June or whenever it could be, you would have kind of more of a dumbed down version of spring practice in June.
Okay, so your vision, Sean, back up now. If we get rid of spring practice, just start in the month of March. What's March look like?
So I would say that you would be doing more install, like what we see that's going on in June now, those 2 practices a week that are 1 hour each, you could do those in March.
What about April?
That you can do in April.
Similar.
And lifting and running. And then in May, the players go home for a little bit. Then they come back in June.
And then it ramps up.
And then you do more of like OTA-ish practices where you might have pads on and do more work.
See, here's the thing. Now that if I were a coach, that would make me a little nervous because then your season is super long. It starts in June effectively, right?
Yeah, you have a break in July though.
What kind of break?
Like 2 weeks or a week or 10 days.
That
like,
helps.
you know, you send the players home. Like they traditionally right now do a 4th of July break and then they do a break before training camp. Like that's how they normally do it.
Huh. Boy, the rhythm of life of college football is being interrupted.
No doubt.
Not interrupted. It's being abolished.
Well, we saw in COVID though, like Nebraska tried to keep their players here from late April until like Christmas. And everybody went nuts to the point where they didn't want to play another game.
Right.
They voted not to go to a bowl because the players did not have a break.
You're burned out.
From like April 25th until like December 20th in Rutgers.
Burned out.
And that killed those guys to the point where they all, not all, but enough voted not to play.
Burned out. Now, the thing though, now that you're paying guys, or a lot of guys, not all the guys. I mean, one thing Rule mentioned in that interview with Pate, Josh Pate, I mean, it really hit me. You're not paying all 105. He said you're paying 30, 40, or 50 guys. So there's still a lot of guys that aren't getting paid. And when you ask them, well, we're working a year round now. Some of them you're not getting paid. Now, some of them
they'll get the standard cost of attendance and scholarship check. They're just not going to get the big money rev share money.
It's I can see why coaches in that interview, if you watch it, Rule has a lot of reservations with where college football is going. He is working with it. I mean, he's willing to engage and make it work and find ways to make it work. But it's interesting to hear Rule say about like going to 105. He doesn't like it.
No,
doesn't like it. Doesn't like what he has to do.
No, because he's a traditionalist
at
heart. He said it himself. But you know, credit him and all these other coaches that are just having to adapt on the fly. Because we're talking about like all these scenarios. No one knows what's happening. No one has a plan in place for what the future is going to hold this spring or even 2 years from now when it's a completely different scenario.
All right, when we come back, Abby Barmore will join the show, and we'll take your questions in the mailbag. You're listening here to the Husker Online Show. Back here on the Husker Online Show, Sean Callahan, Steve Sipple, Robin Washut, Abby Barmore joining the conversation here for the mailbag. But before we get to that, this segment of the show brought to you by Factor. And if you're not familiar with Factor, they make it really easy for you to eat right. They send you a box of freshly made, ready-to-go meals. You can lose up to 8 pounds in 8 weeks with the keto meals, for example. But they have 40 different options across 8 different dietary preferences on their menu each week. You pick the meals that you want to reach your goals. Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, Keto, you name it. They have you covered at Factor, and they ship the meals each week right to your house. We're going to give you 50% off your first box plus free shipping. Just go to Factor Podcast or use the promo code Factor Podcast, but go to factormeals.com/Factor Podcast, or the promo code is Factor Podcast to get that 50% off with free shipping on your box. Thank you again to Factor for sponsoring us here on the Husker Online Show. But let's get into the mailbag with Abby Barmore. Abby, where are we starting off?
What stood out to you most about Matt Rule's sit down with Josh Pate?
How long it was. I don't know if I've seen one person get a full hour. I mean, I'll put it into perspective. Like Steve Sipple a 35-year veteran of the market is lucky in a regular setting to get one question, let alone an hour. So like to see somebody get that kind of opportunity to dialogue with Matt Rule, that was interesting because it's just too hard in our setting here to get that. And so I like to see him in that longer form just because we don't get that very often.
It was a very philosophical discussion about, the matters that face college football. What stood out to me? I thought it was interesting that like the coaches that impressed him the most this year, he started with Signetti, the guys that when he pulled back is sort of like a fan. He mentioned the job Signetti did. He has never met Dillingham at Arizona State, but was impressed by what he did, but also just the way Dillingham carries himself. I'm not a Dillingham fan, so I was struck by that. Nor am I a Signetti fan, so I was also struck by that. But that, and just Rule always makes an impression with how versed he is, and how eloquent he is, and willing to share his opinions.
That was my point, or what I was going to say is just the level of honesty and transparency that came across in a variety of subjects, both just with kind of the here and now with what's going on with college, and then the future and how Nebraska plans to adapt, and his kind of long-term view of the path to navigate this ever-changing landscape of college football. And I think that some coaches are a little tighter to the vest because they don't want to say the wrong thing, but I think Matt Rule is very open about the challenges and maybe his feelings on the changes that are happening, good or bad, and just kind of his reaction. So that's kind of what he is, though. He's honest. He's kind of an open book, and I always appreciate that part of him.
Yeah, he's incredibly eloquent too.
All right, Abby, what's next?
Okay, do you think the NCAA basketball tournament should be expanded?
Oh yeah, everybody thinks that.
Absolutely
Does anybody think
not.
that?
No.
Does anybody?
TV networks do. Yes.
Okay.
They do, because you get more games.
They're talking about going to 76. So that's +8, Sean. If you look at what would be the +8 right now, 6 to 7 of those teams are coming from power conferences, which are it's kind of like college football.
So that would ensure like Indiana gets in.
Yeah, teams from the power conferences. That they'd want to take care of those
for brands.
So
for
the
TV.
14th best team in the SEC is going to get
the
in.
bubble this year is already atrocious. Like there's just like the cutoff point already at 68 is, you're kind of pushing it a little bit to justify these teams making the NCAA tournament. Now you want to expand it even further and add even less deserving teams to the field. You're watering down your product. There's no need for it at all. I am staunchly against NCAA tournament expansion.
I haven't talked to anybody who's even remotely for it.
No, because fans and people that care about college basketball want no part of it. But the people that can benefit from making money from it, they're all for it.
Yeah, looking at like the mid-major bubble, even like, do you count, first of all, like even the Mountain West teams as mid-majors?
I think technically, yes.
But there's not even that many mid-majors that are in. I mean, the ones that are in. Like New Mexico's in, Utah State's probably in, VCU's probably in. Like there isn't like this big bubble. Like back in the day when there was a legit bubble, like the Missouri Valley Conference would get 5 bids some years. Now it's a 1-bid league.
So they went to 64 teams in 1985. I'm not sure when they went to 68. It's 64 was obviously the sweet spot. 1985. It's been perfect. It's spread out over 3 weekends, right? It just fits. It fits everything. What are you doing here?
Messing with a good thing. It always ends poorly when you mess with a good thing.
Yeah, Nebraska, and we'll talk more about that. But yeah, they're sitting pretty right now, and they've had to earn it. I mean, I think if you're not near a 500 team in your league, either a game below or above 500, you shouldn't be in the tournament.
Yeah, it reduces the significance of the achievement when half of college basketball makes the NCAA tournament.
All right, Abby, what's next?
Next one. Who is your pick for the Big Ten Basketball Coach of the Year?
Rob.
I would say the guy at Michigan right now.
Dusty May.
Dusty May. I mean, just what he's done in year one, he could win the league.
What did he inherit?
Not much.
I mean, Juwan Howard left him
he lost everybody.
Was it a mess?
He brought in, like, his best players are guys he brought in with Golden and
Danny Wolf.
Yeah. So, yeah. He's probably the front runner, honestly.
Then guard.
Great guard.
That's it. Would you put Willett in there?
from Maryland.
Yeah.
No.
What about
Because
if
that's what Maryland should be. They're doing what they should do.
What about if UCLA if they just win out?
Okay. Yeah, but
Right on the cusp, but no.
I mean, they just lost to Minnesota.
Lost
at home.
Well, that was last night.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Lost to Minnesota
I
at home
didn't
and
stay up. Yeah.
gave up a 17-point lead on their home court.
Yeah. So
Somehow Dawson Garcia got loose for 26 points in the second half against a defensive coach.
Can Dawson Garcia graduate, by the way? I feel like he's been there forever.
Wouldn't you say to Cronin, now wait a second, how did he get loose for 26?
well, he'd probably blame scheduling and the coast to coast conference travel
Or
and
his
all that stuff.
assistants.
He's
You're at
seen,
home.
he's seen the Statue of Liberty twice this year, Sip.
Yeah. Yeah.
I like Cronin.
So have we, basically.
And hey, fans and home court environment have nothing to do with play. So, yeah. So the question is, my Dusty Mays followed closely by Greg Gard on my list.
All right, let's see.
Did I say the Maryland's coach? Did I get his
Willard.
name right?
Kevin Willard.
Willard. Did I say Willard or Willard?
I don't remember. I heard Willard.
Jordine, Bob Meir.
Oh, geez.
Willard.
Add another one.
All right.
Hey, Abby.
Final question.
That's
Miss Barmore.
commentary from you.
Our last question is: what is your favorite non-alcoholic drink?
Milk, easy.
For me, it's
Milk.
a hot Americano drink.
Okay.
Like
I was going to say coffee.
Yeah.
Beyond caffeinated beverages, give me an Arnold Palmer.
Ooh.
Little iced tea lemonade action.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Okay.
Diet Dr. Pepper in a styrofoam cup.
Ooh, nice. Those are good choices.
Why styrofoam?
I drink an inordinate amount of milk.
Keeps it colder.
I drink a ton of
the ice.
Abby, I drink a ton of milk.
Our friend Andy Kindy,
Interesting.
I don't know if this hack still exists, but you could drive through McDonald's, and Sipple's the unofficial McDonald's expert of Nebraska, and you could request styrofoam for your cup, he said.
If you hate the environment.
Ooh.
Yeah.
There was an unexpected twist there. Have you ever done that?
And you get your Diet Coke in a styrofoam cup. Now, Andy will text me, hopefully, to hear this part, but I don't know if they still allow that. But Andy, instead of he was a big drive to McDonald's to get the Diet Coke guy. You're a big drive to McDonald's to get the coffee guy.
There it is. Free advertising, McDonald's.
And that's $1.
$1.52.
Ooh.
It was $1.19 for a long, long time, and I'd say 5 years ago it went to $1.52.
Inflation.
Unbelievable.
Great
My
deal.
favorite is Dr. Pepper, but I do love coffee, but I really love Dr. Pepper.
huh?
The only
Yeah.
time I drink soda or pop, whatever you want to call it, is like at Nebraska events when it's just provided for you for free. Like I never actively go out and get a Mountain Dew or something. But when I'm sitting at a press conference, I'll have 2 of them.
And somehow the press box is the only Husker event I know of where there's a Diet Dr. Pepper fountain.
But not original Dr.
But there's not an original
And
Dr.
it
Pepper.
drives me crazy.
I hate
I'm a
there's
diesel Dr.
2
Pepper.
Diet Dr. Peppers. There's
no
no regular
regular.
Dr. Pepper.
Get the heavy.
Oh, it's
And
terrible.
but you go to
It's
any, that's the only Husker event you can go to, and it's great. You got Diet Dr. Pepper but you don't get it anywhere else except the press box at Memorial Stadium.
Dang it. Here's my campaign. I'm going to start a campaign for just regular Dr. Pepper.
That would probably be a Keith or Vicky call, is my guess. They control the vendors, but Premier's gone, so that might the whole setup could be different in there.
It's open for bidding.
Interesting.
Could be. Remember
I'll have to
Wisconsin?
send an email.
Wisconsin's in-stadium vendor. It may not be anymore, but it was for every time we've been there was RC Cola. No joke.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I remember. Yeah.
I mean, it was the only place in America where you get a fountain RC Cola.
It's
Was
refreshing.
was Badger Stadium.
They had
Camp
Mr.
Randall
They have
Stadium.
Mr. Pibb too. Was it
God.
RC and Mr. Pibb?
God, it seems like they did. Better times.
RC Cola. Barry Alvarez must have had a backdoor deal with some RC Cola executive to keep it in there because it was the only place in America. They don't even sell RC Cola in gas
That'd be
stations.
incredible if RC Cole was lying in your pockets.
Yeah.
Can you ever go to High V
RC.
and find? I mean, do they still carry RC Cola and High V?
Maybe.
I'm sure.
Get some mellow
I'm sure
yellow.
they do.
It's a good question. I think
They
do.
carry everything in Hy-Vee, it feels like.
When we come back, more basketball talk with Robin, some big games ahead. You're listening here to the Husker Online Show. Final segment here, the Husker Online Show. Sean Callahan, Steve Sipple, Robin Washett, as it is some basketball talk here with Robin. But before we get to that, Sip, Husker Online brought to you by who?
There's a place in Nebraska City that you should get to know, Larson Motors. If you're looking for a new vehicle, how about go for a new experience? at Larson Motors in Nebraska City. It's one of the Midwest's only dealerships with all the major brands: Chevrolet, GMC, Hummer, Ford, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram. Purchasing one of those has never been easier. So start your new experience today at LarsonMotorGroup.com or at Larson Motors in Nebraska City. New experience, Larson Motors, real people,
real deals. All right, Robin, let's get into the tournament discussion, because I think that's where a lot of people's focus is right now. The Big Ten appears today to have 10 teams squarely in. With Nebraska and Ohio State kind of occupying spots 9 and 10. The latest bracket matrix actually has Nebraska now slightly ahead of Ohio State as a 9 seed. So we've seen Nebraska kind of go from an 11 to a 10 to now a 9 seed. And with a game at home on Monday night against Michigan, I mean, is that an opportunity to solidify maybe even a 9 seed?
Well, yeah. I mean, to take a huge step forward, because right now, like the path is pretty clear to just get into the tournament, and then beyond maybe winning, I guess. So full disclosure, we're talking about before the Penn State game, so that is to be determined. But if they can get to 19, I think they're in a very good spot. If they get to 20, they are in. It's a matter of seeding. And then if you get to 20 and you have a win over Michigan, then suddenly your resume looks pretty darn impressive, because that is going to be arguably one of your better quad 1 wins that you have on the season, when you've got that would be 7 of them. So opportunity, like that's kind of what this, obviously there's still work to be done. Like you need to win the Minnesota game. You need to beat Iowa to make sure that you get to 19, 20 wins. But everything beyond that is all about kind of putting more and more icing on that cake and improving your seeding. And the other thing to think about, like with that 8-9 seeding, there's really, really good teams that are falling on that 8-9 line.
UConn.
Illinois, like teams that have kind of sputtered as of late, that have maybe fallen into that. Yes, UConn being one of them, the defending national champ. So like, that creates a bit of a daunting scenario to where, like, you want to talk about adding icing. The potential, I think, that Nebraska really should be focusing on, get to that 7 line. If you can play your way up to 7, then you get a 10 game in the first round,
10 seed.
Then all of a sudden, you've got some opportunity abound.
Where does we don't talk about the Big Ten tournament, that can be helpful too, right?
Yep. I mean, you're adding neutral site, potentially quad 1 wins across the board, because basically every team in the Big Ten would be on a neutral floor, a quad 1 game.
You could move up in the Big Ten tournament.
You win a couple games there, you're not going to get punished, and you're going to be rewarded.
Right.
Think about this though: the 8-9s potentially playing the 1 seed. I mean, Robin mentioned it. I mean, Creighton's an 8. Right now, Oregon's an 8, Connecticut's an 8, Baylor's an 8, Gonzaga's a 9. And the New Mexico, Utah State, and Nebraska are all 9s.
Those are good teams.
Like, imagine if you're a 1 seed and you're playing UConn.
Yes. Right. Well, that's the other thing. You win that 8-9 game, then all of a sudden you're playing Duke or Florida or Auburn or Alabama. Like that's a tough road. So that's why, like, you want to talk about being able to move up to a 9 or clinch a 9, like.
Get to 7.
Take it a step further. Yeah. Get to 7.
Our fall,
because that's like you said, Sip. Well, I mean, there's something to be said for that.
There is.
But the ability to get to 7, I think, is so important. Not only because of what it could do for your tournament matchup, but then also that means that you're rolling into the off season. Right. And Nebraska hasn't had off season momentum like that in a long time.
See, I could envision Nebraska getting on something of a roll. They're going to get Burke back.
Yes, ideally for Michigan on Monday.
Right. Now, here's my question to you. Now, awkward, because we're
taping before the Penn State game.
We're doing this before the Penn State game. If Nebraska were to beat Penn State, would there be a temptation to hold Burke back another game, knowing that you don't play it for 5 more days? You get 5 more days of
I think that's the reason he didn't make this trip. Like, he didn't travel to Northwestern, and then they went straight from Northwestern to Penn State. Like, they did it on purpose, because they want to make sure he is as close to 100% as possible for Michigan, because of Michigan's size and the versatility of those bigs. You can't play Braxton Mia against those guys. Like, this is one of those games like Wisconsin, where he didn't play at all. Like, where it's just a matchup nightmare. You need Berke on the floor. And we just talked about what a win over Michigan would do. Right now on Ken Palm, Nebraska's got a 47% chance of beating Michigan on their home floor. Projected score of 75-74. So that game is there for the taking, especially if you have Berke back to 100%. And I think that the plan long-term was they thought they could get through Northwestern, one of the bottom teams in the conference, through Penn State, one of the bottom teams in the conference, to where then you're back to full strength going into a potential critical game for your seeding. Talk about getting to 7. Beating Michigan goes a long way in getting there.
Robin, traveling for a guy like Berke on a plane, hotel beds.
Yeah, well, and not being away from your full treatments, like your facilities. Like he's doing everything like just max focus on treatment. And they're going to try to get him back on the court when Nebraska comes back to Lincoln and see how he responds from there. So he's still day to day. But I think the long-term plan since he hurt that ankle was to get him ready for Michigan.
And the good news Monday night, Robin, it's going to warm up a lot. So, I mean, I think that could be
50 degrees on Monday.
A really, really good 56 for the high Monday.
Yeah. And then you follow that with your last Saturday home game against Minnesota.
It'll be a monster crowd. Now, Michigan, Sean, Rob knows this. He pays closer attention to basketball. Michigan's a unique team because they got 2 bigs.
Yes, 2 7-footers that can hit threes and beat you off
and
the
that
dribble.
Work together really well. They work very. It's a very unique team. Robin, is there a team in America that has that sort of setup? I don't think there is.
Well, the fact they got 2 of them, Wolf and Golden, and then you surround that with good players like Namari Burnett and Roddy Gale and Trey Donaldson. Like, I mean, they've got really good complementary pieces around that, but those are the 2 guys that make them go. And there's such a unique matchup challenge.
Right.
Again, Nebraska has a guy that can do some of those things, and so that's why they needed him to be as close to 100% as possible for this one.
All right, well, lots to follow as we zone in on the bracket with Nebraska basketball, hopefully for a second year in a row. If you're not a member of HuskerOnline, we got a great promo going on right now. You can get 1 week for $1 for a whole year. So $52 at checkout, no code needed. That's the best deal you're going to get. $1 a week for the year, an annual subscription at $52. Try us out at HuskerOnline. That is the best deal we've offered in a while. Thanks again to Abby Barmore, Stephen Sipple, Robin Washett. I'm Sean Callahan signing off here for another edition of the HuskerOnline Show.